to the 2021 STEAM Career Showcase for Students with Disabilities, hosted by the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. My name is Liani Yurka, and I'm a young, light-skinned woman with long, dark hair and brown eyes, and today I'm wearing a red sweater. I'm the assistant manager for Walnut Creek Wetland Park, and I was part of the team that started this STEM Career Showcase in 2013. So I'm really excited to welcome you all and join you as your host this year. Over the next couple of hours, you will meet professionals with a wide range of disabilities that are thriving in STEAM fields. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And there is a tremendous demand for talent in each of these fields. I want to tell you a little bit about our program's accessibility features. There's an American Sign Language interpreter in the corner of the screen. Live captions are at the bottom of the screen, and there will be audio descriptions as part of the primary audio track throughout the showcase. It is now my pleasure to welcome the director and CEO of the museum, Dr. Eric Dorfman, who would like to say a few words to welcome you.
Thank you, Liani. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eric Dorfman, Director and CEO of the museum. I'm 6'3", have brown hair, and wearing a suit, tie, and glasses. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you to the 9th Annual STEAM Career Showcase. Thank you all for joining us today for what I'm sure will be a wonderful event. It's quite a turnout. I've been told that there are over 1,000 people registered from 28 different US states, as well as 4 countries. I couldn't be happier that we're reaching so many people, more than we ever have. I'm also grateful to have an exciting selection of people on the panel who are passionate about addressing a truly global issue, that people with disabilities remain underrepresented in STEAM fields. Our hope is that providing access to these STEAM superstars, it is not only informs you, but inspires you to pursue a STEAM career with passion and confidence. So thank you all for being here. And a big thank you to our event sponsors, SAS Foundation, Red Hat, LabCorp, Savas Learning Company, and the Vought family. Now I'll turn it back over to Liani, who will share more about our great lineup of speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Dorfman. Let's review the schedule for today's showcase. First, our keynote speaker will deliver remarks followed by a diverse panel of professionals with disabilities who are thriving in STEAM fields. Following, we'll have a short intermission when you'll have a chance to virtually meet some of the museum's animals. After the intermission, you'll have the opportunity to join one of 5 breakout sessions in Zoom, where you'll be able to converse directly with the keynote speaker or one of the panelists. The Zoom links can be found in the email you received yesterday or earlier this morning. If you have questions throughout the program, or if you need help with the Zoom links, please email Jessie Rasso, who will put her email into the chat. Now, let's get started. Our keynote speaker is Brandon Winfield. Brandon is the founder and CEO of iAccess Life, a mobile app that allows people with disabilities to rate, review, and research accessible venues such as restaurants, retail shops, grocery stores, and more. Through his startup, Brandon aims to empower users to know before they go and to feel confident making plans with their friends, colleagues, and loved ones. Please give him a warm welcome. Off to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Liani. I really appreciate that introduction. My name is Brandon Winfield. I'm a 28-year-old male, African-American with black hair, brown eyes, and I'm currently wearing a dark gray pullover sweatshirt that's kind of unzipped. I am currently in a co-working space, even though you can't see that by my white background with the STEAM Career Showcase logo. But if it kind of gets a little bit noisy around here, people are just coming back from lunch. So I apologize for that. Bear with me. But thank you for having me. I also like to thank you I'd like to send a thank you to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences for putting on this incredible event and for graciously allowing me to speak. So without further ado, let's hop into everything. And I think I would like to start off by saying that this conversation is more about disability not being your disadvantage, instead more so of it being your advantage. So a little bit about me. I grew up in California, and while I was out there, I met my best friend at the time who was racing dirt bikes. Ever since I can remember, and from what my mom and my parents first told me, my first words were motorbike, and it was the true love of my life and something that I always wanted to do. So I grew up racing motocross. I was chasing this dream of going professional, but at 14 years old, I was injured in an accident while at a race that left me paralyzed from the chest down. So today I'm a T7, T8 paraplegic, complete injury, and it's been about 14 years now since this accident has happened. Through this accident, I started to discover a lot of things about accessibility and people that had gone through a certain accident who may not have had this experience before. I noticed that a lot of people in rehabilitation were not wanting to wake up in the morning. They weren't trying to do their exercises and their chores and the things that they had to do to, qualify to leave the rehabilitation and go to outpatient therapy. This was something that really stuck with me as I ended up leaving and going out to, live my life. I was 14 years old. I wanted to meet girls like everybody does, or a significant other, girls, guys, whatever it may be. I wanted to meet somebody. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to travel and do things with my friends and live my life as if nothing had changed. I wanted to be with the same group of people and just do fun things. Through this process, though, I was met with many barriers to entry, whether it be going to a location and finding out that the parking situation wasn't great, getting to the front door, seeing that there were a bunch of steps to enter the place and I couldn't use those steps and I would have to go down an alleyway or a back entrance, or even worse, not be able to go in general. But I think what really pushed me to end up where I am now, and we'll hop into that in a second, was the fact that I would go to the locations and not be able to use the bathroom. And for me, that would be very embarrassing. We have a small window of time, so we have to make it someplace and we have to be someplace that is accessible for us to use the bathroom. I think a lot of my motocross experience is what also set me up for this bit of resilience that I carry with me. And we'll get into that as we get into the story. But this app that I started, iAccess Life, it came from a necessity of going places and feeling like I was a burden to the people I was traveling with. I hated having these grand plans to go someplace and then finding out that it wasn't an accessible place. And I wondered why we didn't have this information at our fingertips. How come I couldn't know before I went? Everything that we do from day to day is very planned out. And this is kind of what led me down my STEAM career path, essentially. I grew up racing motocross, and I was somebody that did enough in school just to get by so that my parents let me ride my dirt bike. And I think it's funny, this journey that we went down. Of course, that being the fact, there's a lot of hurdles that came with this journey. I had no idea how to start a business plan. I had no idea what it went into developing a mobile application. I was starting from scratch, and I think just being so passionate about something is what helped me get through this. I started researching, I started talking to people, and through this journey, I was able to meet somebody who was going to develop my mobile application for me. And once we started working together, things seemed very good. We got to meet the development team. We were moving right along with everything. And as it came time for this mobile application to be finished, where we could put it out to the public, they kept pushing the date back. They said it'd be another couple weeks, couple more weeks. And this went on for about 3 to 4 months of them kind of dragging us along and saying that things were done and they're almost there. And then one day we finally get the app, we open it up, and it is completely just terrible. It was not complete. Screens were broken, links wouldn't work, buttons weren't working. and comes to find out that they had hired somebody else in Atlanta. It wasn't the team that they said that we would be working with, and they had kind of ran out of money essentially and started to kind of piece together this thing. So that was a setback for us. That was very heartbreaking for me. That was something that it felt like we were so close to being at the finish line, and then we weren't there yet. So we had to restart again. We had to start from scratch. And this is where that resilience comes into play. We all have our ideas of how things should go or how we've seen things go for other people before, but there really is no blueprint to the journey that we all go on to reach, the places that we want to be or end up, where we're trying to go. So that was a setback for me. That was something that really hit hard, and it felt like we were never going to be able to turn it around. After that day, I did a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out where we went wrong. And I think it all initially started with me as a person. I had taken my mindset that I had racing motocross and doing sports and felt like all these things would just come naturally to me and things would fall into place. And I really wasn't dedicating myself or being consistent or working on bettering myself day to day. It was just it was hoping for the best and expecting the best every time. Everything that I did was hoping for the best and expecting the best. And then after we had this setback, this, caused me to reflect a little bit. I started to look at myself. I noticed that I hadn't been exercising. I hadn't been working on myself as a person in general. Ever since I stopped going to school, I really wasn't learning anything new. I felt like I knew it all and I could just kind of go from there and use my abilities to figure everything out. So I decided to turn things around. I got a plan. I would set up reminders in my phone every day of 3 things that I needed to get done after I got done working. And these would kind of be my goals that I would check off. And it's amazing what you can do when you set up just a few goals to do every day, whether it's making your bed, doing your laundry, reading 10 pages of a book, doing some meditation, which I'm very, very big on. I think meditation is huge for everybody. And just doing these things that promote consistency and feels like success in your life. Like you feel like you're accomplishing something every day. And once you start getting those goals checked off and just doing those little things day to day, it is crazy how things will just start to fall into place for you. I can't tell you how many times it feels like we've been on our last leg when it comes down to money for the company or these problems arising that we don't think that we can get past. And for some reason, some way, somehow, of course, they always say luck is opportunity meeting preparation. So I feel like I've had a lot of luck along the way, but I was prepared and I was ready for my opportunity to come about. And that's what I want everybody here to do as well. It's really just learning to believe in yourself, and doing those little things a day will help you feel like you've accomplished things and that you deserve certain things that you're trying to work towards. How are you supposed to achieve those things if you can't see them or believe that you deserve those things? So doing those little consistent, setting a plan, having a few goals in mind, working to be 1% better every day. It doesn't have to be a drastic turnaround. I know that seems like a big mountain to climb, like a lot of work to do, which it is. But when you do those things consistently over time, you start to see the benefits pay off. Those things start to stack up and work with you instead of against you. So after we got all these things in place, I was able to meet who is now one of my advisors, who is Brad. And this was somebody that I consistently just consolidated with and worked with because he had started businesses before. And he was somebody that would send me articles and ask me how things were going. And one day he introduced us to a development company where we actually sat down in the building that I am currently sitting in right now, which is a big tech hub here in Atlanta. And it was a place that, as being a startup founder, I always wanted to be here. I always drove by the building and just wanted to be inside of it and see what was going on and meet the people and be around the energy and people that were creating something amazing from scratch. And betting on themselves, essentially. It's a scary thing to do, is to bet on yourself. So we had this meeting. What was supposed to be an hour-long meeting turned into a 2-hour-long meeting. And we discussed my vision of iAccess, why I was doing this, all the things that I had seen, all the problems I had encountered, and how we were going to serve our community and serve just hopefully the world in general. And they loved it. They bought on with everything. And it was, you can see I get kind of giggly about it today. It was one of those things that felt so good that, we had something legitimate. We had people that had done this before, and we knew that we were going to get the job done. So from there, it was all about me having to go and find the money. And this goes back to the whole resilience thing, because raising money for a startup company is exhausting. I'm naturally an introvert myself. I hate talking to people. I hate speaking. I always get nervous doing things of this nature. I'm sure, some people here can relate to that as well. So I hope that I'm proof that you can do these things as well. So we went on the fundraising tour. We were talking to people. I was staying consistent with my meditation, my stretching, my reading, listening to podcasts and certain things that would help benefit my life and weren't just noise, essentially. It put me in a certain zone that I wanted to work and do things and be productive and be successful one day. And once you start believing that, like I said, it's just these things happen and fall into place. And I had been trying to raise money for 2 to 3 years before this with little to no success. Actually, no success. There wasn't even little success. There was zero success until I started doing these things. And we were able to get the first investment. And from that first investment, we were able to start development on the app. And just like dominoes, everything started to fall into place after that. And here we are today. I was able to launch my company in April of 2019. I actually took a bet on myself right around before we started doing the launch, and was able to leave my 9-to-5 job and focus full time on starting up this application. And that was right around the end of 2018. So it's been crazy to me. This motocross racer who didn't focus in school, who hardly applied himself, who just skated by off of, I felt, natural ability and things of that nature, has, and I don't want to say I've changed, because it's something that is constant work, and you never are done working on yourself and improving yourself and meeting new hurdles and new obstacles. Just when you think everything is going smooth and in your favor, there's something that pops up. And then that's where I don't want to call it training, but that's where your consistency of showing up every day, being the best person you can be, helping others out, and just working on yourself. That's where that resilience carries you through. You believe that you will get through this. Your mindset kind of changes, and you know where you're headed. And you know that these little obstacles that may interrupt your flow and your story are just minor setbacks that are ultimately going to be part of your story when you tell it to people one day, kind of like I am now. So don't let those obstacles and what seems to be a hard time, or what seems to be something that's trying to deter you or tell you that this is not the way to go, don't let those slow you down. Find a way to let those things evolve you and teach you a lesson and help you grow for the next obstacle that's going to be in your way down the road. It's all accumulative, and everything that you put into this is what you will reap from it. It's all the funny cliches that you hear on TV every day, but they're so true. And they're the easiest things to say, but usually the hardest things to do and to put into action. So if you can find a way to do that, to keep believing in yourself and keep working on yourself and find some sort of consistency, I believe anything is achievable. Like I said, I never thought I would be here today. So we were able to launch in April of 2019. So far, we have close to 6,000 unique locations rated around the world, all 50 states so far. And then we've also seen ratings come in from over 30 different countries. the Philippines, Nigeria, Vietnam, Ireland, just all these places I never imagined. I used to have those fears that I think a lot of people have. It's the imposter syndrome feeling of, am I enough? Am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choices? Do people really care about this? Will they use it? How is this all going to work out? And then you go back with this is exactly what people want. I know exactly what I'm doing. This is going to be great. Everybody's going to love it. And it's an interesting balancing act, but the work never stops as far as trying to grow and keep going. I couldn't wait for the day that I would see my application in the app or on my phone, just in the app store, being able to download it. And once that goal was accomplished, it was like we were on to the next goal almost immediately, right away. There was no time there's little time for celebration. You got to celebrate the small victories, but you can't get too carried up in those, and you got to keep working towards the next goal. And that's what we're doing right now. So we were able to launch in April 2019. We are close to 5,000 user signups. We'd love to have you guys sign up as well. We're in the iOS and the Android store. So check us out, iAccess Life. And I am continuing to evolve and grow and learn and do things. I am now working at this tech hub that I always wanted to be a part of. And my new venture here is working with startups. I help minority and women-led founders who have started a company and raised under a certain amount of money get their startup up and off the ground, essentially. We try to give them a better chance at success than what normally startups have. I think there's a 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first 3 years. So what we try to do is give everybody at least a 30 to 40% better chance of succeeding and getting where they want to go. And it's a weird thing to wake up every day and see that the little things that I had done that, may have seemed so small and just like they didn't matter at the time, how they added up to be where I am now, and that I really am living my dream, and that it's possible. It's really possible. It's a complete 180 from where I was going and where I was headed. And that's why I think our disability can be our advantage. My disability changed my life. I think it helped me become a better person in general. I think it helped open up my eyes to what's really important, what people really go through on a daily basis, and not even just from physical mobility, but all the other impairments and disabilities that I've come across and that I've seen people work with every day. And I'm just very appreciative for what I have and what I've been able to do and the people that have been around me. So I like to say that to try to put a nice bow on everything and try to wrap everything up very well, let your disability be something that makes you unique. My disability has brought me into a mobile application that I think is very not thought about. People don't think about accessibility until it affects them. And what we're trying to do is shine a light on that. We're trying to shine a light on it in a fun way and not focus on your disability, but more focus on the fact that you are living your life and you want to have fun and you want to be independent and you want to go out on that date and you want to try new things and be adventurous and go new places. And we're trying to open up eyes to that. The fact that, I think the common misconception is that we stay inside and that we don't like to go have fun. And they couldn't be more wrong about us and what we're doing and how incredible we are and the unique perspective that we bring to things. And that's why your disability is your advantage. There's, especially in the career or in the STEAM career field, which you guys are all here for that. And I think that's amazing. There's endless possibilities for technology to develop and for things to, become better and more accessible for everybody in the world. And you could use your disability to your advantage to be the person that helps do that. And I think there's nothing better and more fulfilling than being able to help people and kind of leave your mark in that way. Leave your mark helping others to be happy and do the things that they want to do. So with that being said, I may be a little bit quick on time, but I'll go ahead and wrap up. I think that's a great place to leave off. And thank you guys for all being here today. I hope this inspires some people to go out there and take some risk and start working on some things and creating lists and meditating and just doing things to be 1% better every day. That's all it really is. Don't let the commercials and all these things fool you, and the Instagram and all that stuff where people's lives is perfect. It's not perfect. We're all out here struggling together. We're all trying to be the best versions of ourselves as we can. And it's just one day at a time, and go out there and chase your dreams. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I was just captivated by what you were saying during that keynote, and I took notes, but what really stuck with me that it is absolutely scary. It's a scary thing to bet on yourself, but you did it and you have such great success. And I hope that the students and the folks joining us over the internet today take that to heart, because it really does pay off, as we can see. I know I will invite students to learn more from Brandon during the breakout sessions, and that'll be after our intermission later on. But for now, we're going to switch over to our panel discussion. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our panel moderator, Jamie Edson. Jamie is a talent scout within products and technology at Red Hat. And Jamie was also a panelist in last year's program. So we're really excited to welcome you back. Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks, Leonie. I hope everyone can hear me all right. As Leonie said, my name is Jamie Edson. I am a 32-year-old white male. I have brown hair, a scruffy brown beard. I do have a virtual background right now, but I am working from home in my office. I have a bookshelf, etc., behind me. But as Leonie mentioned, I am a talent scout within products and technology, and I'm at Red Hat. My chronic illness is technically sacral agenesis, which is similar to caudal regression or similar to spina bifida, which means my spine ends at L4. So I am very excited to be your panel moderator today. This panel includes a group of distinguished and accomplished professionals. So welcome all of you, and thank you for participating in today's event. At this time, I'll call on each of you to audio describe yourselves and share a little bit about your background and your disability. Kira Gomez, may I introduce you and have you get us started?
Yes. So hi, my name is Kiara, and I am 29 years old. I am a brown Latina with curly hair, black glasses. I'm currently wearing blue headphones and a red and green floral blouse. I am a person who stutters, so please feel free to ask me about any of the stuff that I talk about now, as I will have some pauses and some moments of unclear speech. I am currently a PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm currently working on ancient oceans in offshore Norway, and I'm really excited to meet all of you.
Thank you. Next up, I'll introduce Miles de Bastion. I think we're getting the interpreter unmuted at the moment. Sorry, folks.
All right, all right. So hello there. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My name is Miles DeBastian. This is my sign name. And I am an artist director, and I am for a nonprofit organization called Sima Space. I look like a white male. I am 36 years old. I have brown hair, green eyes. I'm wearing a black jacket, and it's over a gray shirt. My background is pretty simple. It's just a gray solid background, very nice and clean. My role in the nonprofit organization is an artistic director, and I also am a technician and a visual sound artist as well. And I'm excited to be here today. I identify as a deaf male. I'm using a sign language interpreter today.
Thank you.
I speak with sign language myself.
Thank you. Next up, I'll introduce Laura Feldberg.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Feldberg. I'm a 44-year-old brunette female. I'm Hispanic with brown eyes, and because I'm virtual, very fluffy pink bunny slippers. I'm wearing a pink shirt, and I'm in a room right now that has a couple dogs in it who hopefully will remain quiet. I have anxiety, I have depression, I have something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a disorder of the connective tissues. The easiest way to describe it is if you think about a brick house, the mortar is sort of what keeps the bricks in place. And if that mortar is not structurally sound, the bricks move more than they're supposed to. My connective tissue or my collagen has some gene encoding problems in the proteins. And so those building blocks don't work in my body as well. And what that means is it's very easy for me to get hurt. Things just can dislocate very easily. You've got collagen all over your body, from your eyes to your teeth to your toes. And so anything can go wrong at any time. It's very exciting. I also have something called neurocardiogenic syncope, which is a very fancy way of saying that my involuntary or autonomous nervous system doesn't act appropriately as it should. It doesn't monitor things as well as it should. And so my blood pressure can drop really quickly, which leads to fantastic sensations of feeling nauseous and then passing out, which is not at all embarrassing. Despite all of these things, I have still managed to be a technical writer at SAS. I have a husband, some kids, some dogs, and a cat. And so I'm excited to talk to you today and let you know how that has worked out for me and how I've built resiliency.
Thank you, Laura. And last but not least, I'll introduce my colleague, Bob Moran.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, I'm Bob Moran. I work at Red Hat as a content developer. Oh, I forgot the beginning parts. I'm a 59-year-old guy with brown hair, brown eyes, and glasses, and a dark blue shirt with a white stripe. I am visually impaired. I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I am also colorblind. I look forward to talking to all of you and telling my experiences about how I work at Red Hat and what I use and what I do to help others that are visually impaired. And I look forward to talking to all of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for sharing a bit about yourselves. Now let's start our panel discussion with some fun lightning round questions. We'll go in the same order. So Kira, you're going to be up first, followed by Miles, Laura, and then Bob. So the first question is an easy one. Do you prefer dogs or cats?
I am a dog person, so I have two. So I will go with the dogs.
Great. All right, Miles?
I have one cat, but I do like both dogs and cats. I would have to say that cats are easier though, so I would definitely stay with a cat.
Okay. Laura?
At 6 a.m. when my cat is trying to wake me up by pounding on my head, I'm definitely a dog person. And at 8 a.m. when I'm trying to walk my dog who's trying to chase squirrels and rabbits, I'm definitely a cat person.
Nice. And Bob.
Definitely a dog person. I have a small white cockapoo Finn, and we walk together every day. And he's my my pal. So I would say dog all the way.
Nice. I'm a dog person as well. Next question, Kira. Who is your favorite superhero?
I would have to say it's Wonder Woman, mostly because she's really strong and I want to be as strong as her.
Nice. Miles?
Amber, you're muted.
My favorite superhero again is from the new movie, The Marvel Eternals. And the new actor there on there is Death. And the character name is Makari. So really cool because I'm excited to see her using sign language in a movie such as Marvel, and it makes a lot of people be able to watch it and be exposed. So it's a great thing.
Awesome. I can't wait for that movie. Laura?
So I don't have a superhero, and I decided instead I will tell you who my favorite author is in the moment, because I'm a writer and that's just how I work. And I would have to say Jane Austen is probably a favorite of mine.
Awesome. And Bob?
I'd have to say Spider-Man. I just always liked watching the cartoons and then the movies, so I'd have to say Spider-Man.
Nice. All right, last of the easy questions. Kira, if you could be any animal, what would it be?
I would be a goat because I love their whole nature of just, being super jumpy, super, full energy. And I think that's just me.
Nice. And Miles?
I think that I would identify closely with a sloth. So just kind of, move slowly, but, I want to be more like an elephant, I think. They have a good memory.
Very nice. Laura?
Definitely a dolphin, because I would get to see what was under the ocean. I would finally learn if mermaids were real. Plus, they're really smart, and I would have a blowhole.
Awesome. And Bob?
I'd have to say panther, since they're part of North Carolina, and growing up in North Carolina, I've always liked it, so I'd have to say panther.
Awesome. All right, so now diving into some deeper questions. Kira, if you could, please describe your job and what you do in your position.
Yeah, so as I said before, I'm currently a PhD candidate, so I'm still a student. I'm currently in my last year of my PhD, and I currently try to understand ancient oceans, and I do this by taking some of these sedimentary rocks that we call shales, and I try to squeeze out every inch of information that they have about, what are the previous conditions in terms of environment, climate, and everything that was happening within that setting. And I do that using very different methods. And so a part of my job as a geologist and geoscientist is is doing some field work. And so in my case, I went to Stavanger in Norway to take some of the core samples, to look at them and to sample them. And then from there, I basically have to pulverize all of these samples that I got, which weighed a ton. It weighed about like 100 pounds, so it was really hard for me to like take them home, so I had to ship them. And so for that, after that, I pulverized them, and then I send them off to labs, or I work within a lab to analyze them for many things. So I can do carbon isotopes, total organic carbon, and all of these measurements basically just tell me a tiny bit of information of what I like, of like kind of like a snapshot of what the conditions were. And so that's a little bit about what I do right now.
Thank you. All right, Miles, could you walk us through your day to day?
Sure. Sure. So I'm involved. I am, like I said, I'm with Sima Space. And really, I do the art media culture, and I make sure that everybody has all accessibility and inclusion for deaf and hard of hearing. My role there varies from day to day. Sometimes I'm a manager for a team for different parts of the staff that are independent in their work. And then there's volunteers in our staff as well. I'm best known for art that is visual, since I don't have sound. And so I use lighting that would help with, the visual piece of what the sound is going on around me, such as vibrations or, the stage, to be able to support other groups as well, and to get access into making sure that they have the same equal access and equal experiences that others have that are hearing or sighted. I also have programming, electronic experience, filming, and I'm a musician as well. So my topic for presenting in the breakout rooms is going to be more geared towards what I see as sound visually. And here's kind of an example right here next to my screen that I can show how there's different vibrations with the colors and how they move. And that would help you see what sound is like. All right.
Thank you. Laura, could you describe your job and what you do in your position?
Sure. So the technical role that I have is called a technical writer. That doesn't always really fully describe all of the responsibilities. So every day is a little bit different, which is sort of the best part of my job. And what I do is I look at the software that SAS is creating, I learn how to use it, and I figure out how to explain that to someone who maybe is not an expert at SAS, or is not an expert in math, or doesn't understand analytics. And so it's a little bit translation wise. And to do that, I work very closely with developers, product managers, all of these people whose job titles really just mean they own different pieces of getting a product from somebody's imagination to out into the world. And my piece is the communication piece. In addition to that, and one of the things that I like about STEM careers a lot is there's always, and Brandon mentioned this, there's always room to invent something. And so in any space, whether that's technical writing or programming, there are gaps that you identify as you learn about things, and you are always in a position to try to figure out how to fill that gap. And as a writer, I get the advantage of seeing things the way that someone using the software would use it, instead of a developer who knows how it should work, or a tester who knows how it doesn't work, or a product manager who knows how they want it to work. I can actually see how you would work with it, and that allows me to create content that will actually let you do that.
Thank you. And Bob, could you please describe your role?
Sure. I'm a content developer at Red Hat. My main task, what I do is I create materials related to our products and services. I edit video and audio for different pieces. And then I also do imaging and animations. And I use the Adobe suite of Photoshop, Audition, and Captivate. We also use Final Cut and Premiere Pro to do the editing. And also for animations, we look at Articulate Rise and Articulate Storyline. So a lot of software we use. A lot of it is to create engaging materials. For example, if we were to edit what we're doing today, we would take the video and then strip out the audio, clean up the video, bring the audio back, all those good things. So something that's very exciting, and it's very interesting every day. For example, today I'm building animated GIFs for a product line. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. All right, so going back to you, Kira, what inspired you to get into a STEAM career? Was it a mentor or a class you took?
So I have been very interested in science as a little girl, and was always actually really curious about how the world work and why things were the way that they were. And so because of that, I think I drove my mom a little bit crazy when I was like about 5 or 6, to be honest. But I think I started when I remember I started when I went to high school. So I went to high school for health professions and human services. And that's a high school in Manhattan in New York City. And I was fortunate to be enrolled in a science research program, which led me to be within a science lab at a college. And so I had never been in a lab, so it was really awesome. And from there, I kind of realized that I really loved it. I really love science. I loved the process of science and how you can ask certain questions and, you know, kind of try to answer them using specific methods. And so from there, I knew that in college, I would probably do something in science. I just didn't know what. And so once in college, I decided to major in geosciences after a class with my former advisor, who taught the history of life. And then also I did an internship in marine sciences at the University of Savannah State University, which is in Georgia. And so that kind of put me in the space where I wanted to do something in geology, and I wanted to do something that is kind of doing research. And so that's how I got into geology.
Thank you. Miles, how did you get into a STEAM career? Likewise, were you inspired by a mentor or did you have a particular class?
I have always been an artist. I've been involved into art. Art is in my family as well. So it's just generationally there. I like to, write, and lots of things inspire me through my family to be an artist. At the same time, I found I needed to know more about technology and math. And so as I was growing up, I needed to get more access. I wanted to play music. I wanted to hear or figure out how to hear that, and what can help me with the vibrations and what I could see with light movement in relation to music. By doing that, I could not buy the technology needed for those systems. So I needed to figure it out myself and be inventive and create something that would work. So I needed to know more about the electronics system. I needed to learn about computer programming, more technology science. Really just needed to expand my knowledge in general about all of those different areas, not only for art and just have that focus on art, but in general, all of those STEAM areas. And that is why STEAM has become very important in my life as an artist.
Thank you. Laura, what got you into STEAM?
Okay, so don't judge me, but I started begrudgingly. When I grew up, my parents, I was born in Colombia, and my parents are also from South America, and they grew up very, very, very poor. My mom couldn't afford chewing gum, so she would like take the tar off the street, put it in her mouth, kind of poor. And so for them, as they moved to the States and got good jobs, and slowly as I went through school and through high school, by the time I was in high school, they were doing very well for themselves. Although, mental note, it did come as a shock to them that they had to pay for college, because in South America you don't have to. And so I did have to figure out, that was sort of a surprise for all of us. So I did have to figure out how to do that. So I grew up always hearing, I come from a long line of chemists, and I grew up hearing, if you go to college and you get a degree, and it's a degree in something real, which is in my family tree, that what qualifies as science or math, then you can have a good life, because you'll be able to afford a house and afford to put food on your table. And so that was what I heard growing up. And in case you didn't notice, my superhero is Jane Austen, an author. So I wanted to be a novelist. However, 18 years of programming by your loving and well-meaning parents is not easy to dismiss. And so I'm also, the whole anxiety aspect of my life, the way that's fed into my life is always, second guessing. It's like what I call the spiral of anxious what ifs. And so what I did, I decided to go ahead when I got into college and take a programming class and take a creative writing class, and see sort of what I liked more. And what ended up happening was that I loved the creative writing. That was no surprise. My parents were really worried, but I also found out that I loved the programming class, because it gave me a place to figure out math and puzzles. And I grew up, especially through high school, thinking I was bad at math because it wasn't easy for me. And I was always that student staying after school. I had to get tutors. I had to get teachers to help me. I think the C I made in high school chemistry is the grade I'm most proud of, even though I was almost a straight A student, because again, anxiety. But what ended up happening was, in that programming class, I realized that a real world application of things like math and the logic that I had learned were just as satisfying to me as creative writing. And so throughout college, I majored in the ancient times what was known as computer sciences, which is basically just a programming degree with a lot of math, because I was around when the internet started. I remember like the AOL dial-up discs. And so that's kind of the best guess they had at the time of what sort of a computer and programming degree would look like. So I did that. And at the same time, I just could not leave that creative writing behind. And so I ended up carrying both of them through college. And then I got a job out of college at IBM, and my job was super technical. I sat at a support desk, and I was one of the people that had to support worldwide manufacturing. So what would happen is these giant companies would order hundreds of laptops for their workers, for their employees. And we were responsible for making, like, every laptop had to be touched. You had to load the operating system. You had to fix any issues with it. And I just didn't want to work until 3 a.m. because a manufacturing site in Guatemala was down. And so I needed to find a job that would still allow me to be technical, because I found that stuff very interesting, but let me have a life. And I noticed as I was working in this really difficult job that was just not for me. Some people loved it, but for me, it was too high pressure combined with anxiety and depression. Like, it's just not a good look driving to work crying every day. So I realized that what I had been doing in this job is I had been writing instructions for everybody else, because that was where all of my joy was. And so I sort of stumbled upon this magical place where I could still be technical, but I could also use some of that creative instinct and that love of writing. And that's how I ended up being a technical writer.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't get my video back on at the moment. But Bob, can you describe how you got into your career? And take it away.
Oh, sure. I would say science has always been part of my life. My father had a degree in physics, which he always reminded us of, and he was started off as a product test person at IBM. So that's pretty much how we got to North Carolina, and so that was always part of what we did, and so science was always part of what we did. We also got to do things, since he was in product test. We got a new microwave or got a new trash masher. We were able to test it out and find out what if you could actually get an orange juice can to defrost without it sparking in the microwave, stuff like that. So we did a lot of cool stuff, broke a lot of stuff, but we always had to describe the science behind it, how it worked or how it didn't work. And then I ended up going to NC State and got a degree in applied mathematics, which is how you apply math to other things. And so I use that for education and computer science, coding, and where I learned Unix, and I was also a teacher. And now my Unix skills kind of morph into the Linux skills at Red Hat. And then I also, what I do is more visual. And so that it really helps. And I really enjoy it. I think a career in the STEM or STEAM, excuse me, is very valuable. I wouldn't trade my experiences with the science and math that I had throughout my life. I always good experiences.
Thanks, Bob. So moving back to Kira, can you share a time when you encountered an obstacle in school or work, and what did you do to overcome it?
I'm trying to turn on my video. Oh, there you go. Okay. So I think my obstacle has always been being super afraid of speaking to people, because I'm a person who stutters, and dealing with the anxiety that surrounds that. So everyone gets super nervous with presenting to people or standing in front of people to speak, and so that's pretty normal. And so on top of that, I usually get really, really anxious and nervous about all of the parts of the mechanics of my speech and whether or not you can actually understand me. And so I always ask, can you get the point of my talk even though I stutter? So these these questions have always been huge anxiety pointing things that I've always had. And so but that has changed as that has changed through time. And so I'll share a little bit a little personal note also. When I was growing up, I was bullied a lot for my stutter, and so my self-esteem was not good. So that has not really contributed to, my confidence of speaking. And back then also, speech therapy was really not all about, gaining the confidence. And so it was all about, how you sound and how fluent you were. And so that has changed now. And so with therapy now, I have been able to kind of address that anxiety and kind of see that we're all humans. I have two arms, I like two eyes, and a mouth that I can speak from as well. And so I'm human and I'll make mistakes. And I've been able to overcome that by just trying to love myself more and just say that I've tried my best, and I've prepared a lot, and I always lean on people who I can count on when I really need help, and so that's okay. And so my stutter has made me my stutter journey, or my journey with stuttering has made me stronger. And so especially in a field like science, where you always have to talk to people, talk to the public about what you do and why you're doing it. And so yeah.
Thank you very much. Miles, could you describe a time when you encountered an obstacle in school or work, and what did you do to overcome it?
Yes, so when I went to school, one of the challenges I had was that I couldn't hear. And so that meant that I couldn't understand the teachers if they were speaking. When we went into, certain groups, there was challenges there too. And then when I went into a university, I knew that I had to have access and that was really important for me. I did go to a university where I had let them know I had a disability, and I went to the disability team and I said, I have these specific disabilities. And I decided for myself that I would prefer to have a note taker. And that was because I needed to be able to look at all the places and see what was going on and take it in visually and see the sign language full time. It would have been a struggle for me to look down and take notes. It would have been a struggle for me to look at the presentation slides and type or write down notes. So I decided that it would be beneficial for me to have a note taker as an accommodation. They approved that and provided a laptop as well as a person who would be willing to come to the classes and do note taking for me. Sometimes there would be a student that would take notes that already understood the content. So that was worked out pretty well. And then let me clarify too, it wasn't just a student, it was the last year. It wasn't all, it was a last year student. It wasn't always a student in the class. So at any rate, but we had found out that there was an older student who would soon be graduating, and they would be willing to become a note taker for classes that I was going through. My experiences were pretty positive, and even until now, then there was classes where I would have a note taker. I could look at the laptop and see what's coming, what's coming up on the screen, such as maybe a caption type style of a note taking. And so I can keep up if I missed anything. And especially it was important to find the people in school, what department in school that would be responsible to help provide me those accesses and accommodations, as long as I was able to clarify exactly what my needs were.
Great, thank you very much. Laura, could you answer? Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
So can you share a time when you encountered an obstacle in school or work, and what did you do to overcome that obstacle?
Right. Okay, so I am my own obstacle. That happens a lot for those of us that have anxiety and depression. For example, I never know if I am lazy or tired or depressed, right? It can be really hard to know the difference. When I have anxiety, I'm also a massive introvert. And so I don't always know when I just don't feel like doing something outside my comfort zone and I should, or it's really like a serious like signal that my body is saying like this will lead to a panic attack. So maybe avoid that situation. And that leads me to be in my own head a lot. When my experience of depression and anxiety, which I'm now just at 44 sort of figuring out, by the way, so there's still hope for all of you. If I can just now start this journey at 44 in the right direction, is you feel like you can never trust what you feel or what you see, because everything comes in through this weird filter that distorts reality. And in my case, that's complicated by the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, because that can result in fatigue. For example, after I got my flu shot, I just like was having a really hard time moving around for a week. I was just tired and I didn't know, like, am I lazy? Is it just like, do I need to veg out, or do I need to force myself to go out and go running and exercising, right? In terms of school, people would tell me I was smart and I could see I got good grades, but no matter what evidence I saw of my intelligence, I did not believe it. And I think a large part of that is because you have this anxiety and depression inside of you that's always like, you think you're good at it, but here are the 8,063 reasons why you are actually not good at any of this. And so for me, the process of unlearning, listening to myself, recognizing when I am not the best source of that truth, and identifying people who I think are safe and have enough credibility with me that if I say, hey, am I doing this right? And they say yes, they're not just saying yes so that they can move on with their day, but it's like a legitimate, yes, this is going all right. Those were probably the best ways for me to overcome those sort of self-doubt obstacles. And so in high school, that looked like finding a teacher that I could connect with and spending time with them, not necessarily during the class, but I would go after school. I might do homework in their class, even if it wasn't their homework. I would, as I got like into college, it looked like learning how to pick the right friends, which it could be a subject of a whole other seminar, quite frankly. And then at work, and now that I'm in this professional capacity where people rely on me to get things done at a certain amount of time, that looks like identifying colleagues who I can, if I need someone to step in, if I need to say, hey, I wrote something, I'm pretty sure it's right, but I need a sanity check. Can I trust you to just skim this for me and look at it? And then when they say, yeah, no, this is a good idea, or this looks right, I just believe them. Definitely, I would say that that is the best way that I have found to overcome my own obstacle of myself. That and therapy, which really helps you become reflective and sort of recognize instincts that need to be rewired.
Thank you. And Bob, could you share a time when you've encountered obstacles in school or work, and what did you do to overcome them?
And I would say the obstacle would be at work at Red Hat. When I first came to Red Hat, a lot of the things I was doing was dealing with imaging and colors. And there were a lot of coworkers that were like, well, how are you able to match these if you're colorblind? Well, the way I did it was that there's the hex codes that go with the colors for images. And there's also many apps out there. I used this, my Colorblind Pal app to tell me what the colors were. So it was one of those type of things that the way I overcame it was to look, kind of what we're talking about today, into technology. Look for apps, look for workarounds, and it's all there. And so you don't have to just quote eyeball it. You have so much more out there that you can rely on that will assist you. And I think my coworkers were amazed that, oh, he matched it up. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, when you use the numbers and the codes, it matches every time. So that's kind of what I would say was a small obstacle. I mean, and that's really, there's not been many at Red Hat, so I had to really go back a ways back to think of one. Thanks, Jamie.
Awesome, thank you. So moving right along, back to Kiara. How did you build your support system in school?
Yeah, so I built my support system very, 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 very slowly, and by a huge fire of trial and error. So like Laura mentioned, also my parents also came from Colombia during the 1990s, and we were, super poor while living in New York City, and being there is really hard. And so I was also raised by my mother to be a strong and independent person who needs absolutely no help when solving problems. And so a large part of this, as I kind of look back at these years, was mostly because my mother was very new to this country, and it took a while for her to kind of learn English. And some of these support systems that I could have had, or we could have had while in school, and her while at work, we didn't know of. And so we didn't know what we didn't know. So you could just imagine the whole me, myself, and I approach that I took to heart. And then at some point in college, I realized that everyone needs a support system to be successful, whether or not that is like a friend, a mentor. And so to do this, I first started by just asking for help. And then as the years got by and went by, I had a tight knit group of friends that are super supportive, and I'm super happy and grateful for them, whenever they cheer me on, even though I feel like I'm in, a rut. I'm also super fortunate right now to have support from multiple mentors and advisors that have not only shaped me as a professional, but have also helped me, get through some of the obstacles that of being a person who stutters. And so it takes some time, but once you have your pod, I feel like you just shoot for the stars.
Awesome, thank you. Miles, how did you build your support system in school or work?
For me, it was really important to learn myself how to be a self-advocate, really, to get that self-advocacy piece. And to me, that meant that I had to build confidence. I had to ask for what I needed. I needed to maybe risk standing out by raising my hand and asking for help, and people might look at me, and I had to be more comfortable with that. I did struggle as a teenager to continue with doing that self-advocacy piece because I didn't want to look different. And then I had realized that it was really important that that it was just going to be worth it for me to be able to get access. That was a priority in my life. And especially having those support groups, a supportive environment where I could stand up and let other students know that were in my class and that, hey, I need certain things. I can't hear, I'm deaf. I use an FM system, the big box that is around the neck of teachers, and they speak into that, and it, a microphone that connects to me so I can hear better, stuff like that. Teachers would forget on the FM to speak into the microphone often, and then I'd have to raise my hand and advocate for that and remind them. I would have to ask students, my peers, to help support that, please, to get that FM and, to do those accommodations for me as well. And I had noticed that when the teacher forgot, maybe to turn on the microphone or to turn on the captions or whatever, then there was others that were helping to advocate for that. So now I was no longer the only person having to raise my hand. It was others that were supportive in that classroom environment as well. So a whole support system there. And then other things that I do now, typically before meetings or work times, if there's groups involved, I have them double check their, the access and make sure we're all on the same page, make sure that accommodations are set up on all before we start, so that in the beginning of that, it just becomes a habit every time we have, these meetings, that all need to have access, all need to feel ready and be on the same page, and allow for a safe place for people to, stand up and stand out and say, hey, I need this, I need that, I need the light, I'm not comfortable, I need captions, or what have you. So really, the culture of access is really what I created. And then to be able to share that responsibility, I think that starting that a long time ago was super helpful. And the advice that I could give to you all would be to share that responsibility of access. Let everyone know, remind them, hey, we're in this together. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, how about you? How do you build your support system in school or work?
Right. So I'm speaking to you from 44 years of wisdom, but I can tell you for a fact that when I was in high school, which is when it all, my mental health started to go to hell in a handbasket. Oh, I wasn't supposed to swear. I'm sorry. Shoot, I almost got there. So I just knew at the tender age of 16, after I had a massive panic attack in the movie theater, which is super humiliating, with my whole family, that maybe there was something wrong that I needed help with. And so when I was growing up, going to therapy was not something that people talked about or did, unless there was way more stigma than there is now, right? But I also knew that I was at a place where I couldn't do it anymore. So I walked myself to my guidance counselor in my high school, who gave me this pamphlet with a sad androgynous stick figure on the front, and the pamphlet was blue, and the androgynous guy had a really sad frown on his face. And that is how I learned what depression was. And through working with this guidance counselor, I started the long, confusing journey of learning how to say, I need help and I need to learn how to advocate for myself. The easiest way for me to do that in high school, because I was just sort of learning that I needed that and how to do that, was to reach out to my peers that I really trusted. I made some questionable decisions about who I reached out to at first, and I ended up getting burned. But those lessons of supporting, leaning on the wrong people taught me what qualities I had to look for so that I could pick the right people later on. And so it just made me more resilient, but it also made me smarter. And it's a skill that I use to this day. And I guess what I would say, building your support system is the most important thing that I learned was, just because somebody should be able to support you because society says that they're in a position like a parent or a sibling, that they just so innately should know how to support you and nurture you, is 100% not true. So pick your own support group, make your own tribe. And the only way that you can do that is by allowing yourself to be vulnerable, which is really, really difficult, especially since we're all like, take into the account the one of our first questions, right? Who's your favorite superhero? Like, we put all this value in the society on being strong, being impervious, and we don't value the strength that comes from vulnerability. And from vulnerability is born that support group and that resilience that I think you need to just conquer anything. So it was a very long, rambling, and somewhat vague answer to your question, but it's the best I can do.
It's perfect. Thank you very much. And Bob, for you, how did you build your support system in school and work?
Well, I would think of work. I would think of what you and I are working on at Red Hat. Jamie and I are part of the Diverse Abilities Community of Practice. And what that is inside of Red Hat, there's different communities that advocate for different things. And our group is advocating for persons with disabilities inside of Red Hat. And it's really taken off. There's a lot of people that, for many reasons, don't want to talk about their disability, or afraid for whatever reasons. There's many out there, and I understand all of them. I walk with a mobility cane, so everyone can see that I'm visually impaired, but a lot of people have more, quote, hidden disabilities they may not want to share. So by putting this community together, Jamie and myself, we're trying to get more information and advocate for all those inside of Red Hat.
Absolutely. It's been a wild ride over the last 3 years, but it's so good seeing it come together. We officially launched in March. But this has been a wonderful discussion, everyone. Really, really thankful. Big round of applause virtually for all of you. At this time, I'm going to be handing it back over to Liani, who will help us through intermission and meeting the animals.
Much, Jamie, and to all of our panelists. And it's also, of course, to our keynote speaker, Brandon. You all did a fantastic job. I learned so much from each of you. If you're listening virtually, I know that the panel and the keynote were inspiring to you as well. And I would ask you to give us all a silent round of applause to them. You may use a little emoticons or do a silent clap from your video. We're now going to transition to a 15-minute intermission, and then from there we'll move into our breakout sessions at 2:45. During the intermission, we hope that you enjoy meeting some of the museum educators, Sam and Tom, the audio describer, and they will introduce a few of the museum animals to you all. Now over to you, Sam.
Hello, my name is Sam, and I'm an outreach specialist at the museum. So I go around and teach people all about all of our cool animals and things like that around the state. I am a young, light-skinned woman with long black hair tipped in purple. I'm currently wearing a museum blue polo shirt. And we are both currently joining you from the virtual studio at the museum in downtown Raleigh. And our background right now is a longleaf pine ecosystem with pine trees and grass And I'm joined today with.
Hi, my name is Tom Haynes, and I'm an audio describer with Arts Access in Raleigh. I'm very excited to be here today. I did this last year as well. I am a tall, thin, older man with blondish hair and glasses and a light button-down shirt and dark jeans.
All right, and I was going to get our very first animal right here. And with this animal, you might be able to notice it is a type of snake. With this snake, it is what we call a ball python, and they are found in Western and Central Africa, so across the Atlantic Ocean.
And this snake is about a yard long, about 3 feet long. I would describe it as having almost a blackish or dark brown background with a whole lot of ovoid shapes that are sort of yellowish or tan colored. The snake has it's not really moving around too much. I'm being very polite, and with the tongue is flicking out. The snake is smelling, sensing, and I would say that the tail tapers at the end, and the head is. How I would describe it, it's not really a pit, right? It's kind
of, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. It has like the kind of puffy cheeks of a more venomous snake, but
he has dark eyes, and he was staring at me pretty hard there for a while, so it's not anymore.
Yeah. So it does kind of have puffy cheeks like a venomous snake would have, but this one is a non-venomous snake. It is a constrictor, so it will grab and squeeze its prey as far as like hunting in terms of that. Like all snakes, it is what we call a hypercarnivore. So it only eats meat, and it will help keep down rodent populations, so mice and rats and things like that, as well as, just general small mammals. It will often also eat like, lizards or other things like that too, when it can get that kind of that.
He's wrapping his tail a little bit around her wrist, which they like to do instinctually because it helps them, like, for instance, hold on to branches in the wild.
Exactly. Yeah. I call it kind of giving me a snake hug with that. Yeah. And like all snakes, again, it does have a backbone just like we do. So if you were to take your hand and reach it down the middle of your back, you would feel your backbone. Our snakes have one that run from its head all the way down to its tail. And they use their really strong belly muscles to kind of move. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you might be wondering why it's called the ball python, because it's not really doing a great example of what its name is. But they're called ball pythons because when they feel frightened or nervous, they will curl up into a ball and kind of tuck their head inside the ball to kind of protect themselves. As you can see with this ball python, it has been handled at the museum and used for education a lot. And so it is not feeling very nervous or camera shy right now. It's kind of spreading out like that. All right, wonderful. All right, so that is our ball python. And I'm going to go grab our second animal.
And while she's doing that, I'll mention that the belly of the python was sort of a light yellow or tan color. Very distinctively different from the upper part of the skin.
All right. So our next animal is slightly different than the ball python. It does have arms and legs. And we're going to zoom in on it really quickly so you can kind of see closer to its face. But if you're noticing that this is a type of turtle, you would be correct. This is what we call an Eastern box turtle.
Like our fingerprints are unique. So the turtle has 4 legs. He's not quite as active as he was earlier, but all of his toes are sharp. They're used for digging into the dirt and so on. And his head, he has a rather sharp beak that I think we'll talk about a little bit more later. And kind of a stubby tail that comes to a tapered end in the back. So do you want to talk about the bottom of the turtles?
Yeah, so with our box turtle, they're called box turtles because they have a special little hinge on the bottom of their shell that they can use to close the front part of their shell up. so that they can kind of so they can kind of protect themselves and hide from predators that might want to try to eat them. And so they can tuck their front legs and their head all the way into their shell, and then and again have that kind of protection from predators. Now again, this turtle has been held many times in the museum, so it is not feeling camera shy either today. It's not tucking its arms and its legs inside its shell. But yeah, that's with that one.
Another aspect of this species is that the males have a bit of a depression or concavity in the bottom shell that distinguishes them from the females.
Exactly, and this turtle has that. So this is a male. This is a boy turtle, which kind of identifies them with that. Again, box turtles, they are found kind of in your backyard. This one, they are omnivores, so they can eat both like animals and plants. They like eating a lot of like berries and things like that, but they can also snack on earthworms. They love earthworms and crickets and things like that. And if you all would like to see, I actually have the ability to feed our box turtle a berry today. So I'm going to put them down and then switch my camera view over to our top down. So you can kind of see it's a little bit darker, but I have a little strawberry for our box turtle today. So I'm going to turn him around so that you can see it. And maybe he might eat it on camera, maybe not, we'll see. He might be a little camera shy for eating, but. Oh, I think he might see it. Nope. All right, so I'm going to set that strawberry down for if he decides that he would like a little snack. But as we look down at the top down, we can see those individual patterns and markings on the shell that are, again, as unique as a fingerprint, so that you can identify box turtles very easily by that. Yeah, and these ones are land turtles, so they're not very good at swimming. They might take a little short swim, but in general, they are not very good at swimming. So they're like spending a lot of their time on land. They have a lot of little claws that help them dig in the dirt. And yeah, it doesn't look like this box turtle is wanting a snack today. All right. And like any other turtle, this shell is a part of the box turtle's back. So the spine of the box turtle is attached to the shell, and the box turtle cannot leave its shell. So it grows with the box turtle. It can feel any kind of movement on its shell. It's a part of the turtle. So it's not like those commercials where you see the turtle kind of running out of the shell. They can't do that. Yeah. All right. And yeah, when they're with the box turtles, they're not born this size. They're born little. They're probably the size of like $50, a little bit larger than a quarter. And so yeah, they'll kind of shed the scales that are on the back of their shell like this as they grow, and they'll grow to be just about this size. This is as big as they're going to get, really. All right, we have one last animal that we're going to show you. So let me go ahead and grab that.
And while she's doing that, I'll mention that the box turtle, she mentioned how the ventral or bottom shell has a hinge on it, which is kind of unique. And that allows the turtle to truly retract its whole body into the box and really protect itself from predators, like say a hungry hawk or something.
All right, so for this next animal, I have to put on gloves because this animal is a little bit more unique. It does not have scales on its skin that helps protect it. And so with that, I am going to put on some gloves for its protection. And I'll explain why it's important that I do that later. But, all right. And this animal is a lot smaller as well. So I'm going to bring him out and kind of pull him up to the camera here. And we'll zoom in a second. But this one is our Eastern tiger salamander. Our Eastern tiger salamander. And you can find this animal in the state of North Carolina as well. They are more on the coastal plain. So they're not really found in Raleigh where I am right now, but they're found kind of like in the eastern part of North Carolina. They're also found over most of the North America. They're pretty widespread. You can find them in Canada and even in Alaska, which is really cool.
Yeah, this is a lovely specimen. This animal is a good 10 inches long. They can get up to about 13 inches or so. So they can be pretty long. They're very shiny and kind of a dark blackish background with, again, sort of a brownish set of markings all up and down the tail. The forelegs all have well demarcated fingers and toes, not clawed though. I would say the thickness is about a thumb, something like that. This animal is crawling around quite a bit on Sam's hands, very curious, sniffing and so on. He's kind of still right now, and you can see, I can see the bottom of his head breathing a little bit, which is really interesting. The bottom of it going up and down.
Yeah, you might be able to notice that on camera too, where the bottom of kind of like the throat is kind of moving up and down, and that's it breathing. And yeah, so called a tiger salamander because of those markings. And in a second, I'll show those markings a little bit better. But the reason why I have to wear these gloves is because if you notice, the skin is very slimy. It doesn't have those scales. It is an amphibian. It's not a reptile. And so with this tiger salamander, they can actually breathe through their skin, which is really, really cool. But because of that, if I have any like lotion or soap or anything on my hand and it gets on this tiger salamander, it would not be very good for the tiger salamander, which is why I am wearing gloves for that. And because their skin is so sensitive, they're what is known as an indicator species. And so they're really good to tell if an environment is healthy. If there's a lot of these salamanders around, then you know that the environment is healthy because, again, they've got that really sensitive skin and they're doing well. But if there's not a lot of them around, it's a good sign to scientists and other people that there might be something wrong in the environment. And so they indicate or show if something if an environment is good or bad. And I'm going to put this tiger salamander under our microscope so you can see the patterns and the colors a little bit better. So I'm going to move over here, switch my camera over so that you can kind of see, and you can see the face of the tiger salamander. You can see those really big eyes on the top of its head. The tiger salamanders actually also use their eyes to help them swallow their food. And so if they take a really big bite, they'll eat whatever walks in front of their faces. So they really like bugs and insects and things like that. But they are our largest salamander on land. And so really anything that fits in their mouths, they'll eat. And so as far as our tiger salamanders go, they'll eat something in their mouth and then they'll kind of push their eyes to the back of their head to help them swallow the food that they eat. All right, and you can kind of see those markings on the back that, again, can sometimes look like stripes like a tiger. These ones not so much. These look more like dots, but each tiger salamander has an individual pattern, just like our box turtles do. All right. All right, so I'm going to put our tiger salamander back.
I would say that tiger salamander walked a good 10 or 15 of Sam's hands there.
Yes, there's a lot of movement for our tiger salamander. Much more active than our box turtle and our ball python there. All right, so I hope you enjoyed meeting our mostly native with our box turtle and our tiger salamander, but also some of our more exotic ball python snake animals as well. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the STEAM Career Showcase.
Thank you so much, Sam. And thank you, Tom. It was really great for all of us to get to learn more about the ball python, the box turtle, and our tiger salamander. And if anybody out there is a nature lover or an animal lover, I bet you had a bit of a good time just watching them walk around and get to learn more from Sam. So thank you all. So before we finally transition to our breakout sessions, I really want to take a quick moment to thank our generous sponsors for their support in making this event possible. So a big thank you goes to SAS, Red Hat, LabCorp, Savas, and the Vought family. I'd also really love to recognize Ed Summer from SAS and the entire team that helps make the STEAM Career Showcase happen. It's a big committee going on, and I know a lot of people put a lot of work into today happening. I have had a great pleasure being your host today, and on behalf of the entire team at the museum, we thank you for your participation and to our speakers for their really inspiring remarks. One last note, be on the lookout for an event survey that's going to come to you via email. Thank you in advance for taking just a couple of minutes to complete that. Your feedback really does help improve the STEAM Career Showcase event every year, and we look forward to having everybody join us for the 10th annual STEAM Career Showcase next year. So now it is time to close this YouTube video window and click on the Zoom link that you got in your emails earlier and engage in a conversation with any of the speakers that you heard from earlier today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next year.